Welcome to the RV Family Summit. I'm Michelle Abraham, your host, and today I'm here with Ken Schmitt. Ken is a blogger, world traveler at sensiblenomads.com, and Ken has got a really great story where he's gone from many different careers over his lifetime, from engineering to being a traditional Chinese medicine doctor to being in construction, and now to being in traveling the world full-time with his wife, and now he's helping other people kind of transition from the regular jobs to online marketing or online businesses so that you can have the freedom to travel a little bit more. So Ken, welcome to the RV Family Summit. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate it. Yeah, I was just going to say I started out with many different career choices in life, I suppose you could say, and here we are today, gone through many different venues and many different options to get here.
That's awesome. And I love how you've been very flexible with what you were doing, but did you always have an overlying theme that like when you felt like something wasn't serving you to move on? How did you know to move on, switch careers?
Yeah, so I went from engineering into traditional Chinese medicine and naturopathic medicine, then into construction, and then now into mostly travel. I do as well some online marketing and different like graphic works and web design and stuff like that. So I've got a few different online things that have all brought me from that point to where I'm at right now. I think the biggest thing for me was just to be able to get through the hurdles of how am I actually going to change and make something viable of what I've already done. And that was the biggest challenge. That was the biggest challenge of getting over myself. And I think a lot of people go through that, is that when they want to do a career, just a regular career change of a 9-to-5, even how do you go about doing that, or how do you get the training to do it while you're doing your old job and just continue through? So yeah, it was the biggest thing. You learn a lot about yourself for sure, and especially when you do it your very first time, going from, when I went from engineering into medicine, they're polar opposites, and it was a big leap, and I had no idea on the medicine side. I did have, I dabbled in reflexology and massage and stuff like that. I really loved it. So it wasn't a huge leap, I guess, in one side, but I didn't do it for a profession. So going into that was a huge leap. And once I did that the first time, it wasn't so scary to continue to do that for going into medicine, now into construction, and then construction into travel.
And I think but it's probably more common now too, right? For people to transition careers more often than, say, like our parents or grandparents did, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And before, I mean, it was a lifetime. You spent your entire life at one job, with one company. They treated you much differently than they do now. So I think that's a huge difference as well. But right now, I think we're in the age that transition is inevitable, and I think what they've said is like 4 or 5 years is the max that people are staying at a job. And so, I mean, even if you just look at that just by itself, that kind of forces us to be in that mode or in that mindset of having that ability to morph into something new in the future. And so if you've already got that preconceived idea that you're going to have to, you start to look forward and say, to see where am I going, or how can I continue to generate an income or do what I want to do.
Right. And I think that's why we're seeing so many more lifestyle businesses emerge. People are really more interested in how to, not like how to find a career and then work your lifestyle around the career, but more how to find a lifestyle that you love and how to fit your work into that lifestyle a little bit more smoothly than, say, a 9-to-5, Monday to Friday, rigid kind of structure.
Absolutely. And I think what's happening now is companies are seeing that too, and possibly even to be an advantage to them, that they may not necessarily have to have a lot of the coverage that they used to have for the employee that came to the office every day, or especially when you're talking about benefits and things like that. Now, I mean, I guess that's a little bit more complicated on the employee side, because now you're having to source that type of stuff out. But there are definitely a lot of options out there for group benefits and different things like that you can get involved with, that still give you that same coverage as you would for the traditional box job kind of thing, and won't limit yourself. You're not limited to to what they are, or what the gap is that they're not offering you anymore. So that makes it much more convenient.
Yeah, and I love that, one of the things that you help people do is kind of look at the career they have already, and how can you make that career that you already have more flexible and more easily portable, so that you can take it with you traveling. So tell us how you did that, like say with something like construction, where we think of construction as being very stationary. You have to be there to build something, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's the typical mindset. And I mean, yes, you still do have to have those people on the ground, hands-on, building things. But if you not everybody's going to want to travel. Not everybody wants to have this lifestyle. So there are going to be still those people that are going to want to stay with that and still be the hands-on people doing what they do. Now, those people who don't want to actually have the ability to travel, there's so many options within that, in the construction industry, that there's no reason why you have to stay in one place at any given time. So what I've done in the past, or what and continue to do right now, is project management. And for me, the project management that I do, I am able to move around a lot. The company I work with, or companies that I work with, see that as an advantage to them. And the reason being is because I don't necessarily need to be another employee on the roster that they need to take care of in that typical fashion. So exactly what I'm saying as far as the coverages and stuff like that on the benefits, that's what I've put together. And a lot of my clients, I'll help them through that process of saying, okay, well, this is what your specialty is in that company, and what can we look at, or what different options can you take to be able to utilize your skills and find something that you can do away from the box. And that's sometimes a big challenge, because sometimes you kind of get in the mindset, the racehorse blinders on, and you think, well, I can only do this one thing this way. And that's not the reality. The reality is there's so many components that make a business go. There's absolutely no reason why you can't find something that fits inside that you can master, and that you can still be very productive in what you did before, but just in a different aspect.
I love this. And this is a great conversation for our families right now in our audience, who are maybe, sitting at home thinking, well, this is cool, but I don't have a job that I can just leave and take and go anywhere with. So it's really great, because you're kind of thinking outside of the box, and how can you take what you are doing and turn it into more of a freelance, maybe bring it to another company, or how can you kind of get outside of that box? And I love this conversation, because it's something that we don't think of often. We think, well, we have to quit our job in order to go traveling. But in actual fact, a lot of people I've talked to on this summit have actually taken their careers and just made them more mobile. So Ken, when you're talking to some clients about making their careers more mobile, what are a couple of things that are coming up for them that are preventing them from actually taking the leap?
A few of the big things are, the biggest one is money. You get kind of positioned, and you get used to making a certain income every month, and you're reliant on that amount that you're getting into. So to help the client go through that transition from that point into what they want to do, that's probably the biggest challenge. And it's a big challenge for me too, because I don't know what the outcome of what they're looking at is actually going to be. But it's something that you can work together, and you can see what the possibilities will be and what the probabilities will be with the choices that they make. And pretty much everything is, you can get some kind of analytics from it, and you can get some kind of direction with what they're going to get as a result of changing their careers to what the income they should be able to generate from it. So that's going to be the biggest one. Then after that, then of course there's the family dynamics that are around that. A lot of times when a wife wants to do something, the husband might be, stuck in the old rut. And I see that a lot. Like I find that I do a lot of, I don't want to say counseling, but it's almost counseling, because you're trying to help one person to get to the point where they want to be, but the other one's not quite there yet, or not following, or doesn't understand. And so a lot of times I'll end up dealing with a husband and a wife. One of the two is probably not going to be on the same level that the other is, and helping them both understand what they're going to, what the end result is going to be for them both.
Yeah, I think we're in a really interesting stage in life right now, where a lot of people that are looking at doing this traveling thing, they're being faced with either spouses that were raised to, like, go get a job and you have a job till you retire kind of mentality,
Yeah.
and then there's the other way of it, where it's like, you can create a career, you can create your income with something you love to do. It's kind of that battle between the two. It was the same with my husband and I. He was in his job for 13 years, and being 35, that's like
Yeah.
unheard of. So we kind of like had
Exactly.
to go some back and forth, and kind of like really decide what was something that we were being told was something that is how things worked, and what was something that we wanted, right? And I'm sure you see that conversation all the time. Now, were you and your wife both on board with traveling all the time when you guys first started?
Well, no, for sure not. And the reason being is we both traveled before we knew each other. We both traveled a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so the travel was in us, but the ability to make it mobile wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm more of the explorer on that side, and she's more not. She's more of the person who wants to be stationed,
Mm-hmm.
do the regular 9 to 5, and off we go. And that's fine. It does work. We have a school. She's got a school here in Vancouver. So in fact, for her, it's a little bit more complicated, because you can't teach a child in a private school while you're out traveling around. So in her case, you can't. Now, I'm saying this only for her specifically, because she really enjoys what she's doing. So for her to actually stop doing that, it probably is not a good idea for her at this point in her life. But the good thing is, because we own the school, we can get a substitute teacher in there, and they can cover for however long we want, and we can go wherever. Right. And so now what we've discussed for her exact situation is that rather than her being there every day being a teacher, we hire somebody else to be that teacher, and we pay them X amount of dollars. And from that X amount of dollars, there's a piece of that comes to her. So she generates an income regardless if she's there or not. Now in this school, there's 2 teachers, so we can do that times 2. And, it's not going to be a huge income, but it's going to be something. Now, but that being for her as a teacher, there's so many different aspects. She's a Montessori teacher. So, you can go into an online store for Montessori school products, or you can do online training for Montessori school teachers, or there's so many different things that you can do. So these are the kind of things that we've looked together to help her being mobile as well. She's also looked at some stuff that's completely off the topic of teaching. And I have a sneaking suspicion that in the end, she's going to do a lot of those different components to equal one conglomerate of an income. One thing that we love to do too is we like to sponsor children from different parts of the world. And so we're always out hunting around looking for sponsorship and sourcing money for these different little projects that we're working on and stuff like that. So she's really good at doing that kind of stuff. And I think that that's sort of where things are going to lead for her. So for us who are 2 people in that exact position where I'm more of the person who will just take off like that and she's not, that's how that whole picture is coming together, so that we both have that ability to go anywhere.
And that's great. And I think it is evolve. It always evolves, because, I think, being full-time in your RV for a while for a lot of families is awesome, but maybe after, a few years, that might not be what you want to do anymore. And so always changing, I think, is great too. So it's funny, you touched on an interesting topic about income and how it was a few different projects put together to make one income. Are you finding that is how most people are able to go more mobile, is with several different side hustles or different income streams coming in, and then that makes it a little bit more flexible?
It does. And I think it's a really smart thing. I mean, the old saying of don't put all your eggs in one basket. I think that's the reality of where we're living in this day and age, for especially for this type of lifestyle. And the reason why is because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, for example, the business coaching, or for example, even outside of everything, let's just say today the internet stops. Now what? I mean, if you're in the middle of nowhere and you don't have that ability to communicate, then you're kind of neutralized. So there are other ways to make income without having to be on the internet all the time. And I do think that that's what you really need to do. Now, in our case, where we don't have typically any internet issues on that level, there's so many different things that you can put together, and they're all things that can be of the interest in that person. And that's where it becomes really cool, because now you're designing specifically what you like to do every day, and you're waking up every single day doing something fun to you, and it's creating you an income.
That's the jump out of bed kind of lifestyle that you want to have, because then you don't feel like you're working and you are excited about something, right?
Exactly.
So when you guys are, and you guys do a lot of RVing on weekends and over the summer for several months at a time, what are some of the things that you find when you guys are both trying to work, or you're trying to work from your RV? What's some of the things that you have to take into consideration when you're about to go into your RV for a while that you wouldn't have to necessarily think about at home as much?
Technology is one of the biggest things for us. Just staying connected. We're always like, when we're planning to go somewhere, we're always looking forward to where we're going. And I mean, looking forward, not only looking forward to going, but looking forward to where we're going to be, like where we're going to stay for some certain amount of time, and just check different coverages and stuff like that. When we travel down to the United States, I've actually got two separate routers. One's from T-Mobile and the other one's called Boost. And both of them get different receptions at different locations. So when you start to talk to other people in different areas, they'll go, oh, this one worked really well for me here, but not so well here. So the technology side of things is, that can be probably one of the biggest things to make sure it's under control before you go. Even if that's just something as simple as a Wi-Fi booster in your RV, just so you can have that ability. So we've got a few different things like that we do. I guess the preparedness of the RV itself. When you're going for a weekend, it's pretty easy just to throw a few things into your RV and you're good to go. If you forget something, oh, well, you know what? You're going to be back on Sunday night anyway, and you just throw it in for next time. You write a little list and off you go. I think where it becomes the challenge is when you start to go for 2, 3, 4 weeks or more, or it becomes your home, and that's when you really get to see what you're missing, what things are too much, because sometimes, when I first started doing this, I had all sorts of stuff, and my wife had no clue about RVing at all. She was bringing everything. Our RV was probably 1,000 pounds overweight, and we're out there and we're in the middle of nowhere and we've got all this stuff, and you're looking around going, why? You don't need it. You really don't need it out here. So you start to learn what you actually really need and you really use, and weed out the stuff that's taking space, because in an RV, the space is valuable. And every little real estate has to have something, properly put there and allocated correctly to be able to survive out there, so you feel comfortable.
Absolutely. And do you guys travel with your dogs too in your RV?
Yeah. So we've got the 3 dogs right now, or 2.5 dogs, I should say. We've got our 2 dogs, and we're looking after someone else's. So they're with us everywhere, and they love it. They whether we're on the boat or in the RV or wherever we're going, these guys come with us all the time, and they love it. They're actually very, very adverse to those changes, and we've never had any problems with them whatsoever on that.
I would imagine they're like kids, where it's like the more you take them out in the RV, the more they get used to it, and then the easier they are to travel.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's great. Have you found any?
Yeah, exactly.
Have you found anything that people should be aware of when they're bringing pets on into RVs? Like, there's some places I've heard that you can only keep dogs. You can't keep them in your trailer for very long. Or have you run into anything with the pets?
What I've run into with the pets, and this is really frustrating sometimes. Because we have them with us, sometimes we'll go into a Walmart, or we'll go into whatever Safeway or something, shopping and stuff like that. We can't bring the dogs in there. So obviously we got to leave them inside the RV or inside the vehicle while we're traveling. And how many times that we've had the police called because the dogs are inside this thing. And we've got one dog. She's a poodle cross with Bichon. And she's a rescue dog for us, but she's so anxious. She's such an anxious dog, and she'll bark, 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 bark. And people think she's getting, there's something wrong with her because she's inside the vehicle and just barking like crazy. So we've actually had the police, waiting outside the RV or outside our vehicle And hey, what are you doing with the dog? Da, 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 da. And once they realize the situation, they see that the dogs are actually happy in there, but our little crazy dog here creates so much animosity around that. The other thing I would say for bringing pets or dogs specifically, I suppose, crossing the border to make sure that you have all your documents, because although it happens very seldom, they do ask sometimes for the different shots and the different records of the dog and stuff like that. We've found more coming back into Canada that they've had it than going into US. I found one big thing. Here's one big thing. Our Bijan, he has a special diet. He's got to have this special food because he gets a lot of this tear duct stuff going on. So we thought, okay, we'll buy this great big $150 bag from the vet of food and we'll bring it with us. Well, we got to the border and the border automatically said no dog food.
Oh,
so
no.
Now we literally got this brand new bag, $150 we just spent to bring with us on the travel, and we had to throw it all out, all garbage. He actually let us keep a little bit, like 3 or 4 days worth, but technically they're not supposed to even do that. So that's one thing I would really suggest, that if you have a pet, don't bring food with you.
That's good to know.
Yeah, and it's something that totally caught us off guard, and I had no idea, and we were just looking at each other going, well, now what?
Oh, no.
Because that same thing is going to happen too once we go down to the States or go down to Mexico and come back. Now, if we buy one and they don't finish it, well, then we still got however much that we got to toss out.
Yeah. Well, and that's frustrating, I'm sure, when you have dog has got a special diet to then maybe find that food across the border too. So it's not the easiest thing to relocate that special kind of diet food.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
Exactly. Some are a little bit more complicated to find. So.
Yeah, I bet. So that's really good. That's really good advice for people looking to travel with their dogs. Making sure that they have all the records and have all the documents for your dogs going across the border is really important. And also, that's interesting. I never knew that about the food. I knew that about like our produce and our food. But I never would have thought about that for dog food. So you are coaching clients to kind of embark on this lifestyle. What are some things that you would like to share with our audience that would be really helpful for them? Sitting back at home right now, thinking that this is something they would love to do. They've heard what you said about having different kinds of income, and they're like, yeah, this is something I want to go for it. What would be the first kind of things they need to do to get going?
Make a list of the things that I think that you would like to explore. And I think that once you've kind of got that list of maybe 3 or 4 different options, then you can really start to see what those things can offer you and if it looks viable for you to be able to do. There literally is endless amounts of things that you can do. And I think that a lot of people just need to take that first step and explore what they can do, because the options are so unlimited. Also, the different time constraints and stuff like that you want to put, like how much time do you want to put into it? How much money do you want to put in? Is it something that's just a hobby, or is it something that you want as a business? Mm-hmm. And understand that a business, if you're opening up boutique for selling clothes, well, I mean, you're not just going to open the doors, spend all the money, open the doors, and there's going to be clients. So you got to understand that it's going to take some time. There's going to be a process time there that the ramping up to get your business actually making money and getting clients, and whether it's a sales of a product or a service or whatever it is. So there is that patience factor that you need to add into there to make sure that you're not going to get frustrated in a couple of weeks or a month or 2 or whatever and go, well, this isn't working. Because it actually will work. It's just the amount of time that you put into it and the amount of money, just like any other business. So the travel aspect of it, or the ability to travel with it, that's something that you can look into as well and see just how easy doing that particular thing is while you're traveling. Sometimes it's pretty easy. Sometimes it's not easy at all, but it still can be done. And, as in what we were saying before, as in construction, where you're physically out there doing it, there may be some jobs that you just can't do that. And so you might have to look at something else. But there's definitely other jobs or other possibilities within that realm of that field that you can do. There's no doubt about that.
Awesome. Now tell us a little bit about you guys. You guys have done RVing trips like through US, Canada, Mexico. Tell us a little bit about your extended travel trips abroad. And I've been to the Philippines. And so what's the difference kind of things that you take into consideration work-wise when you go on those kind of trips versus going into your RV?
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges that I've come across is, of course, is Wi-Fi while I'm over in Asia. It can be really frustrating because you want to get stuff done and sometimes you don't even get 3G. It's 2G or maybe 1G if you're lucky, or maybe nothing. I mean, we've been in lots of areas that, I'm trying to do work and I need to go source myself out some Wi-Fi somewhere. And sometimes it puts you really off the track that you're trying to, the trail that you're trying to take. But that's just part of the deal. That's just what you get. But on the other side, you might find that you're sitting on the beach and you've got like awesome Wi-Fi and you're just going like, holy smokes, life can't be any better. You're just hanging out here and you're doing your thing and everything's going smooth. It doesn't happen that often, so I wouldn't expect it. But it can be really gratifying to be able to take what you're doing and go somewhere else and do it. It's so much fun because it changes your perspective of everything. You definitely have this feeling off your shoulders. It's like, wow, like I'm here. I'm in the middle of wherever, whether that's on the beach or whether that's in, a co-working space there or whatever. And you're able to do what you do anywhere. Mm-hmm. And it's such a cool feeling to be able to do that.
Absolutely. And I would imagine that it's also probably a little bit tricky to remember that you also want to enjoy the places you're at and take the time off from your working and enjoy. So I think probably the best advice for people would probably be work when you can, and when there's good Wi-Fi, and when there's not, enjoy, relax, right? Is that how you would kind of structure things?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I try and make it a little bit more structured for me. Like I try and get everything done first thing in the morning while everybody still's kind of groggy-eyed and stuff like that and getting up. I try and blast off as much as I can first thing in the morning, and then it gives me the rest of the day to enjoy with the family or go and explore or do whatever. And you're right. Like I've gone to places and literally all I've done is worked. And, you're in there for 3 or 4 or 5 days later and you go, holy crap, like I want to actually enjoy and explore this place that I've come so far to come and see. Right. I need to get out of here. So after you do that a few times, and sometimes life happens, and you just need to get projects done, or you need to get to get your clients happy or whatever it is, and you need to take care of business while you're there, and that's just the priority. But I mean, if you're not on a schedule, that changes that dynamic altogether, because now it really doesn't matter other than getting your client happy, and then you can go enjoy what you're doing. But if you have that ability to do, a couple hours in the morning, go enjoy yourself for the day, or some people don't like to wake up early, so they'll wake up at lunchtime, they'll go out and do what they want to do for the day, and then at nighttime work. So whatever works and gives you that balance that you want.
Awesome. I think that's really, really great. So tell us a little bit about Sensible Nomads. How did Sensible Nomads come about, and what are we looking on your blog? We were seeing some amazing adventures there. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Sensible Nomads is a couple of years ago, I thought, I really want to show people what's out there, like not only for the business side of how to make money while you're out and traveling, but the actual traveling aspect. And yes, there's so many other people that are showing their travel trips and stuff like that, but they don't really match those two together. And that's what I really wanted to put together, is have that ability to show how you can actually be out there and exploring and stuff like that, as well as have a business component tied to it. Sensible Nomads in its name kind of sounds a little bit oddball. Like, how does that actually match? Like sensible and nomads. So it was a kind of a funny way that I came up with that. And why it was is because you see so many, especially the younger people. I'm 46 years old, so I'm not a young chick anymore. And there's a lot of young people who go out there and this just throw the backpack on, and where they end up is where they end up, and they're just nomadic. I didn't want to have it that way. I wanted to have it more structured, more business-like, more systems in place. And that's where the sensible aspect of the nomads came from. And, so I had to come up with this thing, or I wanted to come up with this thing that relates more to either people who have not such a carefree way of doing things, or the person who's already in a little bit of an older age bracket who knows that they've got kids or they've got the family or whatever. They can't just wing it anymore.
Oh yeah. Types of travel I used to do in my 20s was like so different than types of travel now, right? Before kid travel is so carefree. You can spend 6 months to a year, Australia, Europe, wherever, and no problem.
That's right.
Get work visa still.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Now we're too old to get work
and that's
visa.
it. And not really too old for it, but it's just, it changes now what your outlook will be or your abilities can be.
Yeah.
So the parameters have changed, and that's kind of where Sensible Nomads is at. I'm still doing everything that you'll see anybody else do, no doubt about it. But I can do it on my terms.
Yeah.
I don't have to wait and go, okay, well, my clock says I got to be back to home or back to my home base, by this point. Or the other side of that is, I've saved up $10,000. How far can I stretch that out? And when that's done, then I go back home. That doesn't exist anymore. Now it's when we go somewhere, it's like, where do we want to be and how long do we feel like staying? Okay, well, we're here now. Do we feel like staying longer? Sure, let's stay longer. Who cares? Right? So that's the change, and that's a drastic change up here because now you're not limited. So that's how Sensible Nomads came along. The sort of evolution of where it's going now is still to the same thing. You'll see a lot more training videos coming up like that. We're going to be heading to Australia and Bali and possibly Papua New Guinea. We still do the Philippine trips every year pretty much. Where else are we going to be taking off this year? Thailand. We're going to go to Thailand as well in March. So there's a lot of stuff that you'll see coming up right now. It's been a little bit slow. We've been over the summertime here in Vancouver. We haven't really got out. We're kind of regrouping and doing some other stuff around here. So it's not been a whole lot of videos being produced or a lot of content produced on the website in the last couple of months. But that's going to change mighty quick here. So
awesome. It's always fun to hear what adventures are coming up and what's down the pipeline. And it's really cool. I love the Sensible Nomads idea. I think, being more sensible with, you can actually travel for long periods of time and you can take your business with you. And I love the coaching that you're doing with people. I think it's really valuable. So if you get a chance, make sure you check out sensiblenomads.com. And Power Coaching is your coaching business. Can you talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah, Power Business Coaching came about. It's actually a fairly old business in that because I started so young at doing business, it gave me a good opportunity to really see what business is about for that mindset or, being that age, which was 19 when I started my first business. And that was a very, very successful business, which I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing at that time. I think that in business, you need to make a lot of failures to actually succeed. And that might sound counterintuitive, but the more you fail, the stronger and the better you become for your future endeavors. So Power Business Coaching basically takes all of those different components that I've gone through. And I've screwed up so many businesses, it's crazy. But I've also had some pretty awesome businesses too. And that's what I rely on. That's what I rely on as both of those successes and those failures to continue to build, because everybody's going to go through them no matter what business you're in. So my powerbusinesscoaching.com is where I have that whole component of coaching, taking people through, the startup, or if they're already an existing business, how to create systems, how to keep themselves alive. And also, not only on the business side, but on the personal side, because really the bottom line is it's the person involved in the business, not the business. So I do a lot of personal training with mindset and different goal setting techniques and stuff like this to help people achieve to where they want to get to, because that's a really big component of running a business.
Absolutely. Similar story to you, starting off being an entrepreneur so young. I'm glad I had some that some businesses that we succeeded with, some that we didn't. And it was really good because I think you really learn quickly, and you can be able to pivot and move on from there. And I think that's so great that you're able to take those experiences and put that into your coaching, because if you're coaching and with someone who's only been successful, they don't really know half of the story or half of the struggles that you would go through as a
For
business
sure.
owner. So I think that's really important, and it's great to
Exactly.
learn from those mistakes. Yeah, that's awesome. So make sure you guys check out Ken's powercoaching.com. And thank you, Ken, for being with us today. We've talked a lot about business and so many of your cool adventures, and I can't wait to follow you guys on your really neat adventures going to Australia and New Zealand next year, and all through Thailand. Are you going to New Zealand? I heard Australia, but I didn't hear New Zealand.
It's possible. It's possible. We might jump over to New Zealand too for a bit.
Awesome. Beautiful there. Yeah. It's a lot like BC. You're like,
I've heard,
familiar? Yeah. It's a lot like right. BC. I love it. So, and Thailand and Bali, great. I'm excited that you're going to do that this year, because I would like to do that the year after. So I'll hear all about your adventures and all that. So thanks so much for being on the RV Family Summit. Reach out to Ken. You guys have lots of information. Check out the Sensible Nomads website. And you have a Facebook group too, Ken, I think, Sensible Nomads?
Yeah, we've got a Facebook group. Yeah, Sensible Nomads on Facebook as well.
Awesome. Stay connected, guys. And thanks again, Ken, for being on the RV Family Summit.
Great. Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, have a great adventure.
Thank you. You too.